Hello and welcome to India Business Hour. I'm Shireen Bhan. The headlines that we're tracking for you this evening. SEBI chairperson warns of froth in some pockets of the market, announces stress tests for mid-cap and small-cap funds if their trading volumes are more than 3 times the average. Also red flags potential signs of manipulation in the SME IPO platform. Tata Sons is unlikely to go public in the foreseeable future. Sources say multiple options, including debt reduction or hiving off Tata Capital, are being considered to adhere with RBI rules, which mandate a listing by September 2025. Select Tata Group stocks decline on account of the uncertainty. The board of Aditya Birla Capital approves the merger of Aditya Birla Finance with itself, subject to regulatory approvals. The move will convert Aditya Birla Capital from a holding company to an operating NBFC. Birla Group becomes the first large conglomerate to comply with the scale-based RBI regulations for NBFCs. 4 years after it was passed by Parliament, the Union Government notifies the rules for the Citizenship Amendment Act. The law aims to give Indian citizenship to Hindu, Sikh, Buddhist, Jain, Parsi and Christian immigrants from Pakistan, Bangladesh and Afghanistan if they'd entered India before the 31st of December 2014. The law won't apply to certain areas in the northeast. Sensex and the Nifty end with sharp cuts after hitting record highs in early trade. The Sensex ends over 600 points lower. The Nifty drops 160 points. Bank stocks lead the decline. Supreme Court dismisses State Bank of India's plea seeking more time to disclose details on donors of electoral bonds, saying the data is readily available. Orders SBI to submit details to the Election Commission by tomorrow. Warns of contempt action if SBI fails to comply. Congress leader Jai Thakur moves the Supreme Court to restrain the government from appointing a new election commissioner. Asked that a panel comprising the Prime Minister, the Leader of Opposition and the Chief Justice decide on the appointments. Arun Goyal resigned as Election Commissioner, leaving only the Chief Election Commissioner, Rajiv Kumar, in the 3-member poll body. No signs of a ceasefire in Gaza, even as the Muslim holy month of Ramadan begins. Hamas blames Israel for the failure, even as the UN says hunger is everywhere. Netanyahu rejects Biden's charge that his approach is hurting Israel instead of helping it. India signs a landmark free trade agreement with 4 nations that are not part of the European Union, including Switzerland and Norway. Expects investments worth $100 billion over the next 15 years. Cash-strapped BYJU'S apologizes to employees after delaying Feb salary payments, claims 25% of the staff in the base salary bracket have received full payment, blames investors for blocking the rights issue and creating financial constraints. The Union Health Ministry is against a one-size-fits-all approach to standardize the cost of medical procedures across the country. Sources say the ministry favors imposing a different price cap for different states. Consultations yet to begin. The Supreme Court's 6-week deadline expires on the 11th of April. Oppenheimer wins big at the Academy Awards, picks up 7 awards including Best Picture, Best Director for Nolan and Best Actor in a Leading Role for Cillian Murphy. Emma Stone wins the Oscar for Best Actress for her role in Poor Things. Well, the Oscar action coming up, but let's start with the market action. As always, the Sensex and the Nifty did hit a record high on opening bell, but profit booking set in soon after that, led largely by the bank stocks. So at the end of trade today, you saw the Sensex down by about 600 points. The Nifty lost about 160. Nifty Bank, as we pointed out, led the decline, down 500 points. And the Nifty Mid-Cap was down by almost 200 points. So that was the picture as far as our markets are concerned. But here's important messaging coming in from the SEBI chief. Madhavi Puri Butch has warned of froth in some segments of the market. Speaking to a select group of reporters, the SEBI chief said valuations are going off the charts in some pockets. She's announced stress tests for mid-cap and small-cap funds in the event of heavy redemption stress. Now, tests will be conducted if the trading volumes are 3 times higher than the average results. The results of the stress test will be made public on the 15th of March. Listen in to the SEBI chief.
There are pockets of froth. Navneet, that was the phrase you liked, you preferred. Segments or sections of froth in the market. So, some people call it a bubble, some may call it froth. The question is, it may not be appropriate to allow that bubble to keep building, because if it keeps building, then when it bursts, because a bubble will burst, by definition bubbles burst. So when they burst, they impact the investors adversely. That's not a good thing. So yes, that is also true. But are there others where the The valuation parameters seem to be off the charts and not supported, by fundamentals at all, and completely appearing to be, as regulators like to call it, irrational exuberance.
Irrational exuberance, that's the SEBI chief. The market regulator also planning more disclosures to smaller companies listing on the SME platform. SEBI chief Madhvi Puri Butt said that the regulator is seeing signs of manipulation in the SME segment and has promised more risk-based disclosures and additional surveillance as mitigation measures. The BSE SME platform went live in March of 2012. In the last 12 years, 483 SMEs have listed using the new platform. Let's talk about the money raised now. They've raised over 6,000 crore rupees. Out of this, more than 4,500 crore rupees was raised just last year. That takes the total market capitalization to 1.35 lakh crore rupees. Out of the 483 companies that listed on the platform, 183 have in fact migrated to the main board and 21 companies have been suspended. Listen in.
While the desire of the regulator was to be facilitated and to have a listing environment which is not as, I would say, as well regulated as the main board, because small and medium enterprises find it hard to comply with many of those requirements. The objective was appropriate. Are there some entities which are perhaps misusing that facilitative framework? We have received feedback that that is the case. I think as a first step, we are clear that some more disclosure in terms of risk factors. So for investors to understand that the SME segment is different from the main board, the regulations are different, the disclosures are different, and therefore the nature of the risk is different. I think it's important for SEBI to underline that in terms of disclosures to the investors.
Well, that's the warning coming in from the SEBI chief. Now, the day's big corporate story, Tata Sons unlikely to go public in the foreseeable future as per sources. As per RBI rules, Tata Sons, which was classified as an upper layer NBFC by the RBI in September of 2022, has to go public by September 2025. That's the deadline. Sources tell CNBC TV 18 that the group is considering multiple options to adhere with the RBI rules. These options include cutting down debt on a group level and hiving off units like Tata Capital. Now, Tata Sons offered no comment when we reached out to them for a response to our story. Select Tata Group stocks did decline in trade on the back of the uncertainty. While the Tatas are weighing a strategy to comply with the RBI rules, the Birla Group has become the first large conglomerate to convert its holding company into an operating NBFC. Aditya Birla Capital will merge Aditya Birla Finance with itself. Ritu standing by now to explain how this amalgamation will ensure compliance with the RBI's rules. Ritu, Aditya Birla Group first off the block to meet the upper layer guidelines of the RBI?
Yes, absolutely. It is, because now the board of Aditya Birla Capital has approved the amalgamation of its wholly owned subsidiary, Aditya Birla Finance, with itself, which will create a large unified operating NBFC, which is then going to be in compliance with RBI's scale-based regulations, which required that Aditya Birla Finance get publicly listed no later than the end of September 2025. So this is actually coming in a good 18 months ahead of that deadline. Of course, this amalgamation will have to be subject to various approvals, including from your NCLT, RBI, SEBI, etc. Now, Aditya Birla Capital is the listed entity which operates as a systemically important but non-deposit taking core investment company, and within the structure you have a wholly owned subsidiary, that is Aditya Birla Finance, which functions as a non-deposit taking NBFC. But once this merger goes through, Aditya Birla Capital is going to get converted from just being a holding company to an operating NBFC. Thereafter, Vishakha Mulye is going to assume the role of a managing director and chief executive officer, and Rakesh Singh will become the executive director and CEO of the NBFC of the merged entity. So the idea behind the move, apart from, of course, complying with RBI regulations, is largely threefold. One, it will simplify the group structure for Aditya Birla. Number two, the optimal and efficient utilization of capital that comes along with it. And number three, of course, this will result in consolidation of businesses, which will aid in longer-term growth. Something, you mentioned Tata Sons earlier, has also been trying to do with its financing business. This is the first one off the block. We'll have to see what the next move Tatas make in this regard. As of now, they are also required to get listed by September next year.
All right, Ritu, appreciate you joining us. That's the latest there on the decision of the Aditya Birla Group to move towards compliance with the RBI regulations for upper-layer NBFCs. Oil prices continue to slide, extending last week's losses. This on concerns about slowing demand in China. However, lingering geopolitical risks surrounding the Middle East and Russia limited the decline. Speaking at an event over the weekend, Petroleum Minister Hardeep Puri said any call on petrol-diesel price cuts need to be thought through by the oil marketing companies. Take a look.
I am not going to say that there won't be or there is or there can't be. Tomorrow, if the Red Sea attack takes place, then the fourth quarter may wipe out whatever you have in the first three. After all, they've had. I was civil aviation minister and I know one of the biggest airline. It had its 15 years earnings wiped out in 8 months. देखो, somebody asked me कि इनकी performance market बढ़ी है उसके कारण है या कुछ और किया है. So I think this slide says it. Market बढ़ी है 39% nifty और BPCL, GAIL, HPCL उन बाकियों की परफॉर्मेंस देखिए. Yes, they've done well. They've done well, but in fairness to them, they said as good corporate citizens, हम नुकसान ले लेंगे, हम दाम को नहीं बढ़ने देंगे.
Well, that is the oil minister. Now, the Supreme Court has dismissed State Bank of India's plea seeking an extension till the 30th of June to furnish details on electoral bonds. A 5-judge constitution bench headed by the Chief Justice D.Y. Chandrachud directed State Bank of India to disclose the details to the Election Commission by the close of business hours tomorrow. Further, the court has directed the Election Commission to publish the data by the 15th of March. Ashmit has been tracking that story, and here's his report on the implications of the Supreme Court's verdict and what transpired in the proceedings today.
Indeed, the Supreme Court is not impressed with the conduct of the State Bank of India, and the Supreme Court made it known to the State Bank. Number one, State Bank's request for extension till June 30th has been struck down. In fact, they've been served with a 24-hour deadline. By March 12th, which is end of the day tomorrow, SBI has to furnish all the electoral bond details to the Election Commission. Subsequently, Election Commission will have to publish that data on its own website by no later than March 15th. But coming back to the conduct of the SBI, the Supreme Court asked some tough questions. Number one, why was this application for extension filed on March 4th, which is just 2 days prior to the Supreme Court prescribed deadline? Another question that was asked is that even as the SBI is seeking that extension till June 30th, no information was made available as to what work has been done in terms of uncovering the information, which SBI claims will take 3 more months of time. So with that, the Supreme Court has asked SBI to furnish this data by tomorrow and has accompanied it with a warning. The Supreme Court has said that an officer no lower than MD will have to file an affidavit confirming that, number one, this has been complied with, and secondly, the Supreme Court has warned that while at this stage they may not be taking any contempt action against the bank, if this deadline is not complied with, the new deadline, which is tomorrow, if this deadline is not complied with, the Supreme Court may take contempt action against the bank. So strong words there coming in from the Apex Court. As to what is the body of data that we can expect, well, the Supreme Court, as a part of its judgment records, as a part of its order records, that SBI, by its own admission, says that the KYC data of donors is readily available. The data of political parties and the encashment of these bonds is also readily available. This is the information that will now be made available by the State Bank of India. The question, however, that is now being asked is whether the information supplied will have a matching of between two silos. Will we have the information as to which donor supplied how much money to which political party? That's a big question mark right now. We'll, of course, we're reaching out to the lawyers for more clarity on that. But for now, from what we understand from the order, the two silos of information, KYC of donors as well as political parties, which are the recipients, that data will be furnished by SBI tomorrow. 15th of March is when the Election Commission will publish it on its own website.
Ashmit, many thanks for joining us. Let's see if there is compliance now with the Supreme Court's order. Today, the Supreme Court dismissing the plea to extend the deadline to the 30th of June. Congress leader Jaya Thakur has moved the Supreme Court to restrain the union government from appointing new election commissioners. In a petition, she's seeking a panel comprising the Prime Minister, the Leader of Opposition and the Chief Justice to decide on the appointments just ahead of the Lok Sabha elections. Over the weekend, Arun Goyal resigned as the Election Commissioner, leaving only the Chief Election Commissioner Rajiv Kumar in that 3-member poll body. A division bench of the Delhi High Court deferred the hearing of Congress plea challenging the order passed by the Income Tax Appellate Tribunal. The Congress argued that the party needs funds since the general elections are around the corner. Remember, the Income Tax Tribunal had dismissed Congress's plea seeking a stay on the Income Tax Department's freeze on their bank accounts. The IT department alleged tax discrepancies of 135 crore rupees, including interest. Back to business. Shares of Interglobe Aviation gained after a large block deal in today's trade. Indigo promoter Rakesh Gangwal sold shares equaling to 5.83% stake for nearly 6,800 crore rupees via bulk deals at over 3,000 rupees per share. Morgan Stanley Asia was the biggest buyer, taking 21 lakh shares for over 630 crores. This sale will bring Gangwal's stake in Indigo to below 20%. RBL Bank is looking for more partners to ramp up its credit cards business. Sources say the bank wants to reduce the dependence on Bajaj Finance and is hoping to rope in more non-banking financial companies as partners. RBL Bank did not respond to queries from CNBC TV18. Earlier this month, the Reserve Bank introduced new guidelines to provide more flexibility for credit card customers. JSW Group and MG Motor India will seal their 5,000 crore rupee electric vehicle joint venture deal on the 20th of March. This according to sources who say that PE investor Everstone Capital has picked up a stake in MG Motor's India operations. Further, MG Motor dealers and company employees could receive up to 3 to 5% stake in the joint venture. Cash-strapped company BYJU'S has delayed salaries once again. A large chunk of employees are still waiting February's salaries to be credited to their account. The company claims it's paid full salaries for February to about 25% of its employees who are in the base salary bracket. The edtech startup blames investors for the delay. In a letter to employees accessed by CNBC TV18, BYJU'S says a group of investors has blocked funds raised through the rights issue, rendering them temporarily unavailable for our business purposes. This situation has created an immediate financial constraint for the company. End of quote. The Union Health Ministry is against a one-size-fits-all approach to standardize the cost of medical procedures across the country. Sources say the ministry favors imposing a different price cap for different states. The Supreme Court's 6-week deadline expires on the 11th of April. However, consultations are yet to begin. Timsy standing by with the details. Timsy, has that process of engaging with states begun? What is the central government's point of view on how they intend to comply with the Supreme Court order?
Well, at a time when the Supreme Court has set a deadline asking the Union Health Secretary to hold meetings with his counterparts in the state governments, union territories, and to come up with a concrete proposal within 6 weeks on capping prices of health treatments across the country, sources say that the Health Ministry is yet to start consultations even as the 6-week deadline ends on 11th of April. Sources further state that currently Health Ministry is examining the roadblocks to fixing the treatment charges at healthcare centres, and it has a view that treatment cost depends on several factors and thus having one price across nation might be difficult. Union Health Ministry feels that the centre cannot have one fixed price cap for treatments across states, and prices can be capped probably state-wise or procedure-wise, as there are various factors involved, including the quality of medical devices involved in the treatment, and that could be an issue leading to differences in prices. Not just this, Centre is also of a view that it is tough to ensure adherence to the price cap across hospital chains, across states, and all of this comes on the back of the fact that the government is preparing a ready reckoner to note views of states, hospitals, IRDAI, etc. on fixing the treatment costs. So let's see what is the final outcome of the entire exercise, how soon there could be a concrete proposal to be submitted to the Supreme Court. That is something that we'll have to wait and watch for.
Timsy, many thanks. Up next on India Business Hour, 4 years after it was passed by Parliament, the Union government notifies the rules for the Citizenship Amendment Act. The law aims to give Indian citizenship to Hindu, Sikh, Buddhist, Jain, Parsi and Christian immigrants from Pakistan, Bangladesh and Afghanistan if they entered India before December 31, 2014. Details when we return. You can catch CNBC TV 18's news and updates on Facebook, X, Threads, Instagram and JioCinema. No signs of a ceasefire in Gaza even as the Muslim holy month of Ramadan begins. Hamas has blamed Israel for the failure, even as the United Nations says hunger is everywhere in Gaza. Netanyahu has rejected Biden's charge that his approach is hurting Israel instead of helping it. Ukraine has vowed to never surrender to Russia in response to comments from Pope Francis suggesting the country should raise the white flag. In his nightly address, Ukrainian President Zelensky indirectly dismissed the Pope's call for a virtual mediation. Meanwhile, the Kremlin said that the Pope's comment was quite understandable and that Russia is ready to sit down for negotiations. However, it maintained that Kyiv had ruled out talks. In the crypto market, Bitcoin price is hitting an all-time high, crossing the $72,000 mark. This after the United Kingdom mirrored the United States' decision to permit the issuance of crypto-related securities. Hopes of an interest rate cut from the U.S. Federal Reserve also supported prices. The jump in Bitcoin lifted the token's market cap to over $1.4 trillion. The crypto has rallied more than 70% in 2024 so far. While India signed a landmark free trade agreement with 4 nations that are not part of the European Union, the pact with nations which include Switzerland and Norway expected to see investments worth $100 billion in India over the next 15 years. Pharma, IT machinery, healthcare and education among the sectors that are likely to benefit. Swiss watches and chocolates will also enter the Indian market at lower prices. Meanwhile, dairy and agriculture have been left out of the ambit of the deal. The big national story: more than 4 years after the Parliament passed the Citizenship Amendment Act, the Union government has notified rules that the Act seeks to fast-track Indian citizenship to Hindus, Sikhs, Buddhists, Jains, Parsis and Christians who migrated from neighbouring countries due to religious persecution. But it excludes Muslims, and this decision sparked nationwide protests in 2019. Arunima joins us now with more details. Arunima, thanks very much. The government notifying the CAA rules. Take us through the details that we have.
After a wait of 5 long years, the Citizenship Amendment Act will finally become a reality with the notification of the rules. Ministry of Home Affairs spokesperson confirmed that the rules will ensure that an online portal will make it easy for the persecuted minorities from Pakistan, Afghanistan and Bangladesh to apply for Indian citizenship. What does the law really say? What does the rule really say? What really changes? Now, after this act was passed in 2019, there was a lot of jubilation amongst the Hindus, the Christians, Buddhists, Jains and Sikhs who were facing persecution in Pakistan, Afghanistan and Bangladesh. India allowed them to come to this country and become citizens, but the cutoff date was put at 2014. The question, however, was how do they go ahead and apply? What documents will be needed? All those answers are clear now. So through this website, these persecuted minorities from these 3 countries can apply. They have been staying here on long-term visa for years together. Like I said, the cutoff was 2014. So 10 years have already passed since they last came, the cutoff people last came. One group I spoke to, they are in Majnu Ka Tila in North Delhi. There's another which is in Rajasthan. What they're saying is that these are groups who have come from Pakistan. Hindus who say that this is a huge boost to them because they were unable to lead a peaceful life in Pakistan. Their women folks were repeatedly targeted. Their faith was not safe. So with India notifying the rules, it will be easy for their children to get a life of dignity here in India. Some of them have long-term visas mentioning their nationality and their religion, so that could be an accepted document. Others have notified the FRRO, the Foreigners Registration Office, a month after they came to India. Even that is being accepted. Aadhaar documents, school children's admission documents, which mentions their religion, which mentions their country of origin. Government of India is willing to consider all of those.
Arunima, many thanks for joining us. CAA rules being notified by the government just ahead of the general elections. Hollywood's most anticipated night, the Oscars, has concluded with glitz and much fanfare. Oppenheimer, the big winner, Christopher Nolan's film on the atom bomb maker, bagged 7 awards at the ceremony. Out of the 13 categories it was nominated in, this includes Best Picture. The film also fetched Nolan his first ever Oscar. He'd previously lost out despite being nominated for Dunkirk. Cillian Murphy won the Oscar for the Best Actor in a leading role for Oppenheimer. His co-star, Robert Downey Jr., took home the award for Best Supporting Actor. In his acceptance speech, Murphy said, "They made a film about the man who created the atom bomb, but he dedicated his award to peacemakers." Emma Stone won the Best Actress award for her role as Bella Baxter in Poor Things. This is her second Oscar. The ceremony was witnessed to a slew of performances, with Ryan Gosling's performing the hit song I'm Just Ken from the movie Barbie.
Is it my destiny to
Well, Ryan Gosling quite literally slaying it. With that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of India Business Hour. Thanks very much for watching. The news will continue right here on CNBC TV 18.